really, really good eyesight, you might be able to see where I live. It's a central part, very, very close to Waterloo, Carrickchimer, Orange Road to be exact. And when you speak about Orange Road, you think about the Hanuman Murti Museum and Temple. You also have the Temple in the Sea. And these are two cultural aspects of Trinidad and Tobago that many Trinbagonians have not yet visited. So for those in the audience who have not yet visited, please visit. My talk is a call for conversant leadership. And before I get into a call for conversant leadership, I would firstly explain what does putting some turtle in your step mean. Okay, we're all caught up in doing things quickly, going to school, getting education, trying to finish everything as quickly as possible. But I have recently found that if you were to take things a little less serious, a little slower, that it's actually better for you in the long run. So it's the idea of actually taking your time to do things, dropping out of the rat race, and doing it in the best possible way for you personally. So call for conversant leadership is sort of like the tag phrase for the organization that my friends and I and NGO, we created. I only use conversant because I was trying to sound fancy and, you know. But it basically means to inform, an informed group of leaders then. What is leadership? And when we think about leadership, we think about basic things like somebody who will be able to delegate, somebody who will be able to lead, somebody who will be able to tell people what to do, where to go, how to do it. But it's not necessarily about those things. It's not necessarily playing an active forefront role. Many a times, it's sometimes you have to be able to learn how to delegate and step backwards. So this program in itself would focus on two key aspects that I believe are integral for creating not only leaders, but leaders that could be particularly responsible for the leadership of the Caribbean. Now, I have protocol here, but I'm not going to talk about protocol, my apologies. I'm going to speak about culture and heritage and relations, and how the cultural awareness and the awareness of your heritage, as well as the ability to be able to relate not only to Trinidadians or Trinbagonians, but to persons in the Caribbean, can actually be the best way forward for leadership in the Caribbean. So I'm going to start with culture and heritage, and it's story time. I'm not sure how much of you would have read my biography, but you would have seen that I was an athlete, as it's difficult to understand now. I know I'm a bit skinny and stuff. But I was an athlete at a point in time, in third form. I used to attend St. Anthony's College, and I met this crazy woman who is crazy still today. Her name is Miss Sedano, Miss Anna Sedano. She's crazy. Anybody that knows her, they know that she's crazy. And in the midst of literature class, we were having this argument about this novel called The Pearl. It was a Kino and Wana. I'm not sure everybody remember that, but it's really, really good. And if you haven't read it, you should. And she noticed that I was just as crazy as her, probably a few levels below her. Screaming at somebody across the classroom, trying to get my point across as to what it is that I believe, although they didn't believe what I believed. I was trying to get them to understand what I believe, and I didn't care. I wasn't changing my mind from what it is that I had believed. So she came to me after class, and she was like, she realized something in me that she believed could be harnessed into something more useful instead of screaming at people in class and trying to kill them. So she actually introduced me to UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. They were having a seminar, a symposium in Tobago that summer. I can't remember the year. 3 years ago, I was 15, 16. And the symposium in itself, it was entitled The Bicentennial Abolition of the Transatlantic Slave Trade. It's a lot. But it basically spoke about the presence of the Africans or persons who would have come from Africa through slavery, through the transatlantic slave trade. Now, at this conference, the actual idea of the conference was basically stepping backwards and looking forward. The understanding of the importance of knowing where we came from as a people and why is it relevant for us to be more informed of where we came from. Now, at this conference, I had to deliver a speech on modern forms of slavery. And as I did the research on modern forms of slavery, it was actually an opportunity for me to actually learn about slavery because as embarrassing as it is, I knew absolutely nothing about it. All I knew, because I didn't know history, all I knew is that black people came and we were supposed to be angry, and that was it. But I actually got some information about the slavery, what happened, why it happened, and some of the long-lasting effects that are still happening right now through modern forms of slavery. I had to give my speech the day that the head speaker, the person who was at the head table of the discussion, was Mr. Leroy Clark. And anybody who knows Leroy would know that you would be deathly afraid to say anything about Africans that would be inconcise in accordance to what he believes and what he has experienced. So, nonetheless, I survived because I'm here today. And in my presentation, I found out a lot of things about the Africans and the transatlantic slave trade, the economic reasons, the social impacts, and the modern forms of slavery that really exists today in society. Most notably, I spoke to Leroy, a bunch of us, we spoke to Leroy, we tried to find out exactly what it was about because we still didn't understand what it means to be able to step back and look forward at the same time. So what he was explaining to us, when it comes to leadership, he believed that leaders are not able to connect with the persons or the people that they lead. So just jumping into a group and wanting to lead persons, not knowing anything about anyone, it becomes really difficult to actually understand the direction that they would like to go in without being sensitive towards things that they would have experienced in the past. So the fact that we have leaders who are not necessarily able to relate to persons who would have gone through nothing. I'm just saying like anybody here who's alive today would have gone through slavery. But there's still impacts that would actually dictate how is it we lead people, how is it we lead people who still believe in voodoo, how it is we treat people who still believe in worshiping mountains and gods and stuff like that. I'm sure you would have seen recently on news that there was this cultural tribe in the east of Trinidad who they worship these mountains. And the government decided that they were just going to take the mountains and make it into a heritage park. And they were absolutely upset because they wanted to, quote unquote, serve their mountains in peace. Now, we might be laughing at that, and I was confused as to what do you mean by serve the mountains in peace? Because many a times we actually say to ourselves that that doesn't exist anymore. People don't do that anymore. We don't do those things anymore. So when we're enforcing policies, making policies, we actually don't take these people into consideration. So there's a huge part of our society who has absolutely no rights, who actually go unseen, unheard of, and they are not provided for. So after that symposium, I returned to Trinidad, a new person, actually paying attention to politics, paying attention to economics, what happens in society, my view, my focus in life, my dreams or whatever had readjusted. I no longer wanted to be an athlete. I'm not saying that because I would have lost anyway, but I no longer had those dreams. I actually wanted to become somebody who would have actually added to society and added to society in a sustainable manner. And I'm not saying that an athlete is not going to add to society because the pride that an athlete really engulfs in a nation when they win a race or something, it's useful. But I wanted to be somebody who had a voice. I actually realized that I could speak. And I could actually speak things that were not just nonsense in class while the teacher was speaking. And I could actually speak things that made sense. And I could actually influence people with my voice. So in the summer of 2009, although we don't have summer in Trinidad, but I attended this conference, the Global Young Leaders Conference in Washington, D.C. And at this conference, they asked that each delegate who came from over 150 countries to do a cultural presentation. This cultural presentation would basically be an idea of what does culture mean in your country. And somebody who comes from Trinidad, you would think that we would jump on that opportunity to talk about everything that happens in Trinidad, culture-wise, heritage-wise. But most of my peers, the persons who intend on being leaders, they spoke about Marshall, and they spoke about the costumes. Some of them actually brought the costumes. But the two things that they spoke about, if anything else at all, was basically soca music and the costume. Now, I'm not saying that it's not culture, but I'm just saying that we really gave up the opportunity to show the rest of the world how unique we are. Because I have friends from Antigua, I have friends from Jamaica, and do you believe that they do not celebrate Diwali? They do not eat curry on Diwali. Isn't that a shame? Because you look, and you see it, and I tell my friends, even this past Diwali, I had to explain to my friend from Antigua, he lives in Morocco now, he's going to school there. He knew absolutely nothing about Diwali. He didn't know anything about Idia. I had to explain to him who is Mother Lakshmi, what it is, why it is they celebrate Diwali and stuff like that. And he was completely blown away as to why is it I, black me, celebrating something that I personally, not to say that I actually believe it or stuff like that, but I have respect for it and actually enjoy it because of where I came from. It's actually part of my culture. It's part of my being. And everybody at that conference basically gave up the chance to actually show what it means to be a true Trinbagonian. And regrettably, even myself, I gave up the opportunity. Because at that point in time, I was so young, 16 years, and I saw my peers presenting things that everybody liked because everybody likes music. Everybody likes to gyrate and stuff like that. But I didn't think that they would have received well what I had learned. So at that point in time, I put away everything that I had done research on. My PowerPoint presentation, everything that I would have spoken about of festivals, the different type of people, the different types of dress that we have. And I put it in my back pocket, and I just basically spoke about what everybody else spoke about. We played whatever tune Marshall had back then. We played that, and we whined for them or whatever. And that was it. We sang our national anthem, and that was it. Now, it seemed to be something that I personally did not agree with. I didn't want to do it. But I think that many a times we follow the crowd. And when it comes to being a leader, you must know what is your duty. As an ambassador of Trinidad and Tobago, as a youth ambassador of Trinidad and Tobago, we had the opportunity and we had also the obligation to share what it means to be a Trinbagonian. And most of us, if not all of us, failed. Now, we see this as a youth, but somehow it made its way into present existence. Recently, we heard about the ambassador that was asked to talk about cultural diversity. And you can tell me what better nation than Trinidad and Tobago where we could get somebody to speak about cultural diversity. And what did we do? We made a mess of it. We spoke about garbage men. We spoke about how they met their significant other. And it was truly inappropriate and also embarrassing. And it also made me question, is this something that happens to us at the youth stage, or is it something that's actually perpetuated and blossoms into something that we go out there? But you're an ambassador. And you're asked, your job as an ambassador is to speak about your country, to represent the views of your country, to represent the people. And you're asked to speak about cultural diversity, and that is what you give them. That is embarrassing. But what are we doing about this? What are we really doing to ensure that this doesn't happen again? I mean, somebody's fired, and then so what? It really does not change the problem that seems to begin at a very young age. When it comes to relations, if I was to ask anybody in the crowd now, who is the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines? Anybody could tell me? You're an adult, he's a veteran. But the point is, he is older than us. He's elder. But the youth in our society who would be future leaders, they don't know these things. Can you name the countries of all these flags? And if not, why? And if we are supposed to be leaders of tomorrow, it doesn't matter where or in what capacity you're going to be a leader. You're going to have some kind of discourse with somebody who you have absolutely no knowledge of. Now, when I went to GYLC, I attended this conference. Don't laugh at my glaciers. This guy, a very talented lecturer, he actually specializes in culture. He lectures on culture. That's just his job. He spoke to us about the meeting of two glaciers and his cultural explanation for it. Now, this part here is the glacier that is not seen. It's under the water, right? But these two persons are meeting. These are their eyes, but they are only seeing each other's eyes. They're not seeing what's below the water, and that's culture. Now, the problem that arises when they meet is that below the water, below the surface, culture is not acknowledged. And therefore, there's a lot of misplaced anger, misplaced understanding, or misunderstanding of each other and our cultural backgrounds. So if you are a leader, or if you're a simple citizen in the Caribbean, and you cannot tell me a culture of another Caribbean nation, identify a flag, identify a leader, when you reach the position of ambassadorial relations, what are you going to do? Are you going to do the same thing? There needs to be a training process. There needs to be something that we can rely on to be able to mold, to harvest, to cultivate some kind of awareness not only of Trinidad and Tobago, but of our Caribbean. Because as a Caribbean people, we have the strength that is greater than any other voting bloc in the United Nations. In a nutshell, we are more powerful than the US, than the UK, than most, if not any, of members of the G8 and the G20. And do we use this influence and this power? How many of you all actually know what I just said, that we are actually the most powerful? Besides members of MUNA. Now, these are pictures of, this is Trinidad's parliament, this is Antigua's parliament, and this is Jamaica's parliament. Now, this is where everything goes down, every policy, be it economic, social, regardless, this is where it happens. How do we get the youth to become more interested in what it is that we're speaking about here today? How is it we get them to be more interested in trying to create a level of consciousness and awareness and relevance to what we have learned internationally and apply it to the Caribbean? I present to you the Caribbean Youth Leadership Developmental Forum. A group of friends and myself, we all agreed that these are problems that actually needed to be solved. But highlighting a problem and not giving a sanction and not giving a facility to which this would be resolved doesn't really make much sense. So we decided to create this program, and this is our cute logo that we paid money for, so you better like it. And it basically highlights all the Caribbean nations, and the goals of this program is to create relevant leadership, learning about the world, but still learning about the power of the Caribbean within the world, the identity of the Caribbean in the world. These are the people that I want to say thanks to for doing this presentation, because this dream has been a dream of mine since I was the age of 15 and 16. Now, I never really acted upon this dream until recently, but I realized that when I acted on this dream, that I actually inspired a lot of persons, a lot of my friends who actually, on seeing that I was doing this, they started to actually work on dreams of their own. So the message that I want to give today is that no matter how far-fetched your dream seems, actually dreaming helps other people to dream. Because dreamers, and not only dreamers, but dream chasers who become dream catchers, inspire people to actually dream more and to try to do things that they thought that were even impossible. And they still think are impossible, but they're still trying. Because my group of friends and I, we have no money, we don't know anybody, but we know that we're going to create this program. And we're going to take children from around, not children, but youth between the age of 16 and 25 from around the Caribbean. We are bringing them to Trinidad. We are going to teach them everything about culture, not only our culture, but their culture. But this program has so much plans that I would love to share with you all.